like to create your rich life. Garrett Gunderson is going to tell us all about how you too can do it. And he's the author of 10 books, including multiple Wall Street Journal bestsellers, with Killing Sacred Cows hitting number one and making the New York Times bestseller list as well. And this book, originally titled What Would the Rockefellers Do?, has been consistently among the top 5 titles in Amazon's wealth management category. The first question I have is, what's the secret to your success? And does it have anything to do with discovering how you too can build a rich life?
Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu, mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services.
Yeah, I feel like definitely because early on in my life, I wasn't really creating my richest life. I was just trying to earn it for way down the road. I was like a miser that just held on to every last dollar that I made, penny pinching, obsessed about saving, and it actually limited my ability to be productive. So really, I'd say I have this formula that's really the key to my richest life, which is number one, anytime I have this intuition or a gut feeling or something that's really compelling, I always go, if I'm going to do it, who could I co-create with? Who can help me to be accountable, who could support me and inspire me, and who can move me beyond any times I hit scarcity and into abundance. And then the second thing is I always look at my life and I do an inventory and be like, what can I eliminate from my life? What is not serving me anymore so I could free up the time to do this thing I'm excited about? Then I delegate so I could do what I do best. And finally, the biggest secret is collaboration. Finding people that are just amazing at the things that I'm not, and then collaborating with them so I could do what I love to do. If I'm writing a book or if I'm, I did a comedy special on money, which is kind of a weird thing to do, but it was I immediately called my buddy who was a comedian. I immediately delegated things. And then when we filmed the special that's on Amazon Prime, we had the best, lighting and directors and stage people. So it ended up being pretty phenomenal for a first time on, comedy stage.
Thank you. Everyone has a different idea of what it takes to live a rich life. What I mean by that is some people value spending time with their children and perhaps making, $10K per month. Others see 1 million per month as not enough. So I wonder, what's a good way for entrepreneurs to first discover what is that rich life that would make them truly happy, and how to create it?
Yeah, this is kind of a weird answer, but one of the things is people often don't have enough time just listening to themselves, not just time for themselves. And so having a hobby that you could just lose track of time, that isn't about money, but you just get away, you just feel really fulfilled doing it. You can start to think about what's most important and start to design a life that you don't want to retire from. So we could just simply look and say, what are the things we're doing that we don't want to do long term? How can I just delegate that so that I can do the things that I love? And what could you dedicate decades of your life to? So if you create a vision that's so compelling that you want to work towards it and it's beyond your current reach, that's how we start creating a really rich life, because it builds amazing relationships and it builds opportunity. And yeah, it's really about designing that, because if you find the work that you love, you've already won. The win is in the work. And then if you design your days of when do you start, when do you stop, how much time do you want with your family, how much time do you want off? We have these kind of rules with my wife and I that we always travel abroad once a year. We always have at least 14 nights away from the kids where it's just the two of us. We do our date night on a weekly basis. We always have a trip on the books to look forward to. You just create these things as time goes on by asking the questions. What does my ideal life look like? What makes me feel fulfilled? What makes me feel important? What is it that I would want to stop doing if money were of no concern? And what would it take to get to that point to be able to live the life that money is not the primary reason or excuse because I'm financially free?
Thank you. What are some good ways to create the rich life in terms of perhaps income streams and, ways to kind of set up your life in a way that you're generating that kind of income that you desire?
Yeah, the first thing is we have to like kind of abandon an old antiquated philosophy of accumulation. Most people are like scrimping and sacrificing and budgeting, and they try to save 10% of their income. And then they chase some 10% return in the market, and then they got to wait for 30 years for it to kick in. And it neglects cash flow, and it doesn't create their richest life, because it's almost like living your high quality of life is at odds with saving money. But if instead we look at, what if you created cash flow generating assets? The biggest three that I know of are real estate, which isn't for everybody, and there's a ton of different ways you can do real estate. Another is business, acquisition or starting a business, and then having that cash flow without your daily involvement. And the third is intellectual property. As you mentioned, I have 10 books. Like, I look at those as assets. So each book, like a piece of real estate, essentially. And I can, live from wherever and kind of still sell those books and make an impact. So you have to find cash flow generating assets and create financial independence. Financial independence is having enough recurring revenue from assets to cover your expenses. So rather than accumulating and setting money aside, waiting for 30 years, create cash flow with your assets so you start to have a lot more freedom to do what you want to do on a daily basis. And so I think the even earlier places, there's 4 places where most people are losing or leaking money, and they can plug those leaks to build these assets. Number 1, most people tip the government. If you get a little bit of financial savvy, and I'm happy to hook everybody up with my tax navigator if you want. They can just DM me on Instagram and I'll hook them up. Because if you can figure out how to save tax, that's money that you can start putting into creating cash flow to build your richest life. The second is interest. A lot of people overpay interest, but there's 3 R's that help with interest. Restructuring loans so that they're more efficient. Reallocating funds. If you have something that's not earning as much as you're paying in loans, just pay that off and it frees up cash flow. Or renegotiating and get better interest rates. So IRS and interest are 2 of the ways that people are losing and leaking money. The third I is investments. A lot of people have hidden fees, or they don't know how to protect their downside, or they don't create cash flow. And the fourth I is insurance. A lot of people have improper structure or duplicate coverages. So there's like 10% or more of someone's income that they could put back into their life by just plugging financial leaks, and then focus on generating cash flow with those assets. And then as you have more freedom because you have less requirement to earn dollars, you can, when you do earn them, build more assets and then continue to enjoy life along the way. Don't wait till retirement to enjoy life. Who wants to wait till they're 85 to go jet skiing? I mean, go enjoy life along the way. Invest in your quality of life. Invest in yourself. When you plug these leaks, it doesn't all have to go to a retirement plan. You can start to enjoy life along the way.
Thank you. What was your biggest thing that acted like a domino effect in terms of helping you go from where you kind of started to now having this empire?
I mean, the thing for me was writing Killing Sacred Cows, my first book. Because at the time I only had like 6,000 people in my database. And I met with people one-on-one, and I did a pretty good job with that. But it was, I didn't meet as many people. I was limited with my time. I was just either in meetings or, returning phone calls. It was very low scale, low leverage. When I wrote the book, I built so many amazing relationships. So many more people learned about who I was and what I did. And it repelled some people to not want to work with me, and it attracted others to work with me. And when they read the book, they felt like they already knew me and they could share it with tons of people. So writing that first book, it hit New York Times, and I sold 22,000 copies before it was ever released, and then, continued to sell over time. Like, that book just built so many relationships, and it helped me grow my business in such a substantial way.
Thank you. Tell us your 10 commandments of your life that have helped you to go towards living your richest life possible.
Yeah, so first, I utilize experts, but don't rely on them. So I have a team that I can trust and that I can utilize, but I don't relegate, I delegate so that they know what's going on. I'm still in the driver's seat and know what's happening. Number 2, I focus on cash flow over accumulation. So by creating cash flow, I create a lot more freedom along the way. And then I have that, ability to do what I want to do. And then third, swing for the fences. I create a vision so compelling I could dedicate my life to it. What's beyond my current reach? What's bigger than any problems I face? So I could say, hey, I want to help 1 billion people heal their relationship with money, using entertainment to educate and helping them change their family's financial future and their destiny. So that vision guides me. Amazing family, just having a great family and investing in my family. I go see my parents on a regular basis. I get along really well with my in-laws. We have really good experiences together. I just can trust them. I count on them. I have great kids. I really can confide in my wife. I've heavily invested in that relationship. So having like a really amazing inner circle and then having an amazing outer circle, the people that aren't blood relatives, but that inspire me, that challenge me in a positive way. So it's the relationships really on point 4 and 5, the family relationships you have, and then the business relationships that you have that are absolutely critical. Then another thing is really just having the ability to take care of myself as far as like eating healthy and working out, because I had some kidney issues not long ago, but just by getting my food dialed in and working out and letting go of stress, like that absolutely gives me more energy for everything else that I'm doing, you know? And then I just have hobbies. Hobbies is another big one. So I like to bow hunt. I have a cabin with a river, you know, go walk that river, go up and write. And then the next thing is just finding the 5 things that I love the most in the world of productivity and value, and just creating the system to be able to do those more often. I love when I write. I love when I speak. I love when I build new relationships. I love when I'm, you know, casting a vision and inspiring people. So, and then doing a little bit of comedy. You know, for me, that's one of the things I just like to get up on stage, make people laugh, roast people. So I don't know if that's 10 or if it's like 8 or 9, but I gave you a lot of them right there. Create financial independence, get financially organized, make more money, grow yourself, keep more of the money you make, create cash flow over accumulate, invest back into yourself, enjoy your quality of life along the way. I think that, you know, that's quite a few rules I've got there, but those are the rules.
Thank you. How has your sense of humor helped you in your business in terms of like closing deals and also in terms of creating your richest possible life?
Well, like I've probably roasted 20 people where I got, you know, paid to come and do a speaking thing. And then I roast the person in charge, and that's gone really, really well. And it's tons of fun. I've also just had situations where I'm supposed to speak for an hour and they're like, hey, can you speak for 2 hours? There was some flight issues. The other speaker didn't make it in. And I'm like, cool, can I do comedy? And so I was speaking recently to a couple thousand people, and I went for an hour and 45 minutes. And the guy in charge said, man, we need to have you back next year, but we need to give you more time. That wasn't enough time. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, there's only like, what, 25 minutes? I'm like, no, it was an hour and 45. When people laugh, it resets their energy, and they remember things more when they laugh as well. So I just feel like we win when we play, and laughter is a big part of that. So for me, just the adventure of doing comedy, the adventure of adding it into my speeches so that people could be a little bit more entertained along the way. Like it's just refreshing and fun.
Thank you. Has faith or spirituality helped you in any way in terms of creating your richest possible life?
I mean, basically, I feel like most of what I do is like downloads. It was in the meditation that I was doing, or it was in like morning spiritual work where I'm doing writing, and it like just flows through. So I feel like a lot of what we do is remember what we were born to do more than anything. It's like we have to just remember what we're capable of and what we really desire. But a lot of times we get, you know, distracted and derailed by all the things that are out there in the world. And so I kind of feel like there's free will. We can choose what we want to do, but there's also divine will, which is like within us and the God-given talents and abilities we have. And a lot of times we take detours, but if we remember and get centered on who we really are and what we're capable of and what I would call our soul purpose, SOUL, which is our values, abilities, and passions for the highest context of living, that's a very spiritual nature. And then we have this very divine nature to ourselves, but a lot of times people get lost in chasing something and forget who they are. So I feel like that spiritual grounding is the key to like discovering what's really possible. And it's breaking all the rules of what people say you should do, and then thinking about it, feeling it, and then doing what is implanted in you. Like I wrote this one-man show, had a dream one night about doing a one-man show, acting out 4 characters of the money personas and doing a rap as a white guy because everybody's asking for it. No, just kidding. You know, just like, but I had that in a dream. It was like a spiritual moment. So I just moved forward with the co-creation, the delegation, and the collaboration to move it forward. So we all kind of have that. It's, do we listen to it?
Thank you. Finding a network that is aligned with your purpose is, I think, very important. What would you say were the elements that attracted your network to you? What would you say are those like characteristics or qualities that you have that have become almost like that magnet for, you know, like for high net worth individuals to come to you and to congregate in your network?
I'm really good at making connections that are relevant. So I'm good at like asking the questions, understanding what someone's looking for, even if they don't know about it at the time, by diving deeper, asking further questions. And I'm just great at making those connections and really generous with those connections. I'm also just a good hang. I'm fun. Like, it isn't just always business and boring. We can add tons of value on the business side. We can also get to a place where people feel seen, where they feel heard, where they find themselves laughing, where they find themselves crying, where they're sharing something because of the trustworthiness, that it's not just about the transaction, but it's about who are you and like, what is it that's holding you back? Because a lot of people have money blocks and they have a lot of like guilt and shame when it comes to their money. And so over time, I've just learned to like be a steel trap about those experiences so that they can absolutely open up and share something that's been holding them back. And I can either solve it myself or make a connection to someone who can.
Thank you. Now, I'm very funny. And actually, my humor is very elevated. It's so elevated that it actually needs explanation. So I wonder, it needs a PhD, basically an audience that has a PhD. So it takes a lot, to get it. So I wonder, for those entrepreneurs that are you can say are funny, or they have like a quirk, or they are, they have a special talent that they're afraid to share because they're afraid that they will not be accepted. What would you tell them in order to ensure that they create not only their rich life, but their rich life that is aligned with who they authentically are?
I feel like quirks make us memorable. Like, that's one of the cool things. I've been married for 22 years is like, I know my wife's quirks, she knows my quirks, and some of those only we know about each other. And it's like, I just feel so comfortable sharing those with her. And it's the thing that binds us and bonds us so much. I mean, if the internet's taught us anything, is that there's all varieties and types. And if you look at today's world, those that seem and feel the most authentic are the ones that are most viewed, listened to, because it feels like you get to be part of their life. If you hold back, people feel it. Even if it's something that's silly, even if it's something that's seemingly meaningless, it's meaningful because you're not expressing who you are, and people have that sensitivity to that. So like, own it. Why not joke about it even? That's the thing, is if it's something that you're uncomfortable with, joking about it is one of the easiest ways to diffuse it and acknowledge it. Like, as a comedian, if I tell a joke and the room doesn't laugh, I better sure as hell acknowledge what just happened. Because if I just move beyond it, you feel that awkwardness if you've been in a room where someone like didn't do a joke well and just pretended like it didn't happen. You have this huge opportunity to just acknowledge it, make fun of yourself, have some self-deprecating humor, and just be comfortable enough to do that in your own skin. I mean, I don't know. Otherwise, I think that we end up being boring and mundane if we're trying to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. It's all bullshit. So like, just own the imperfection. That's what's going to make you memorable.
Thank you. Now, Killing Sacred Cows was such a tremendous success, being on the New York Times bestseller list. What would you say was the winning thing that made it possible? Because there are so many wealth management books.
I feel like it was kind of, a contrarian view. There was these 9 myths that most people believed to be true because they were so subtle. But once they read it, it felt like really definitively that they weren't. And it was like easy to be like, oh, I can see differently now. So it had 3 really revolutionary, unique philosophies in it. My chapter on self-insurance, my chapter on avoid debt like the plague, that would fly in the face of everything anyone had read at that point. And it was refreshing. And it also came out at a time where 401ks were at their height of popularity. And I was saying, hey, they're probably not what you think they are. Here's the problems with them, which I was kind of surprised to discover several years before I wrote the book. So after the book came out, 60 Minutes did a special on the problem with 401ks. Time Magazine had it on the cover, the problem with 401ks. So part of it was I kind of had these topics I was ahead of that the rest of the people hadn't seen yet. And then when 2008 came out, that's when the book came out. So I had this perfect storm of everyone being like, wait, everything we thought was true seems a little off. And here's this book out there calling it out while we're in the midst of it. So if I would have written the book a few years earlier, it might not have got the same attention because people didn't really, they were kind of asleep to a lot of things, but they were experiencing it at the moment. And it takes a while sometimes to write a book and release it. So I got a little bit lucky at the timing that it came out.
Thank you. How are you currently creating miracles in people's lives in terms of healing their money wounds?
First off, I still believe in magic. I just don't think a lot of people do because it all seems like smoke and mirrors. But I think we just had Christmas season recently. I mean, there's a lot of magic to that about how people feel, how they forgive, how they open up. during the holidays. And I think that over time, people kind of get beaten down and they start thinking like, oh, I'm just going to accept less than great. The way I feel like I create miracles is simply having people feel like someone has their back, listening to them, seeing them for who they are, accepting them for that, and showing up with love. Like, that's where the miracles occur, is because so many people feel misunderstood. They feel not valuable enough. They feel they have all these stories. And if you can help them unwind and realize that that's not who they really are, it feels miraculous, because the breakthrough can happen in the moment. Like, financial freedom can happen in a moment because it's a perspective. It's a way of being. It's when money isn't the primary reason or excuse you would do or not do something. Value is. And most people just don't see their own value because they're stuck in comparison or jealousy or something happened in their childhood. And I didn't have to have all the solutions. I just had to be willing to create the space that people felt safe to share with me. And when they are, there's that intimacy, and that leads to breakthrough. And they feel so tremendous because in a moment they let go of things that were invisibly holding them back forever.
Thank you. What mindset shifts need to happen in terms of people seeing their own worth? Because let's say you could teach everyone about, insurance and property and so many different things, but perhaps they could hold themselves back from actually making it happen for them because of their own beliefs that they are not worth it.
Yeah. So one, I guess there's like several layers to this. So the first layer is anywhere where someone's stuck in people pleasing, where they're mediating, moderating, peacemaking, it's because they have a lack of understanding of their own value, and they aren't standing up for themselves. And that leads to being, emotionally abused to some degree, because now they're not, they're going, I'm doing this, I'm not getting rewarded for it. And it kind of like, there's a great book, Give and Take by Adam Grant, where he talks about, hey, givers are on the bottom and givers are on the top, takers are in the middle. Why are there givers on the bottom? Because they give and create entitlement and don't value themselves. Why don't they value themselves? Probably because something happened in their childhood that they heard or experienced that made them feel less than whole. And then it paradoxically gets tucked away and they hide it from themselves. And anything that reminds them or feels like that, they immediately go into prevention and protection, which means they lack expression and connection. And so ultimately, if we go back and start healing some of those situations and learning if our prefrontal cortex isn't developed and we have something that happens, like I got hit by a car when I was 3 years old. And then I watched my dad come to the hospital, my grandparents, everybody was afraid. My mom was crying the whole trip to the hospital because a cop watched the car accident, and I just thought, wow, if I'm not perfect, then I harm my family. Well, that's a bad philosophy to have when you're 3 years old and carry it into your future until you heal it. Or when I didn't memorize my address when I was in kindergarten and my art project got thrown away and I told myself I was stupid. So sometimes we go back to where's the first time we have a memory of money? Was that good or bad? When was the first time we felt alone? When was the first time we didn't feel safe? When was the first time we didn't feel heard? When was the first time we didn't feel important? And we go back to those moments. And there's programs out there where you can get hooked up to, I've been to this thing, 40 Years of Zen, where you get hooked up to brain waves and you go back through those experiences and then you flood it with love to heal those patterns so that they're not always leading us towards ooh, this feels bad, I'm going to hold back. I want everyone to be happy, even at my expense, so I'm going to people please. So we have to address and be confident enough in ourselves to stand up for ourselves. A lot of people suffer the abuse of bad employees because they don't want to hurt their feelings, but then they hurt themselves, or trying to make everybody in the family get along at their own expense because now they're always stressed versus just having it out. Sometimes the argument's worth it. Sometimes putting your foot down. I've broken off partnerships that I was in for way too long because I didn't want to hurt their feelings, but it wasn't a profitable partnership. I had to eventually stand for my value. It came back to dealing with some childhood things, having people that believed in me and stood for me and created the accountability so I'd go and do the things that I said I would do. And then you start to understand your value. But you've got to be willing to confront the uncomfortable. And the more uncomfortable conversations we're willing to have, the more we'll understand our own value. And a lot of times people's own value is, what are they confident enough in offering the world? Some people won't put books out there because they're scared what people will say. Well, guess what? If everybody says only positive about your book, you didn't write a good book. You know, if you put a book out there and you get negativity, it's because you actually said something different than what was already being said and confronting belief systems. And that's just part of the process. You can't take it personal. Most people are projecting their own BS, has nothing to do with you and who you are. So a lot of that comes down to healing the childhood, getting, you know, there's tons of work that could be done. EMDR, somatic method. There's so many methodologies, but people don't go and do these, and they get stuck in their neurology, and therefore they hold back. So I know that I could probably go for hours on that one topic, but that's part of it, is like, we don't value ourselves because we just want everyone to be happy, even if that means we're not happy. And somehow we think conflict and confrontation doesn't, I mean, you can come with compassion with conflict and confrontation to stand up for yourself. But a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't want to ruffle feathers. I want to be a good boy or girl. And a lot of it comes from familial things that happen or circumstances that happened in the past.
Thank you. Tell us about some entrepreneurs or case studies of people you've worked with who have transformed their lives into a truly authentic, rich life. And what I mean is perhaps even cases where you knew some people, they were already well off, and then they kind of realized something was missing, and then they made a transformation in their lives, and now they're truly feeling like they're doing what they really want to do, and they're at a level that they're comfortable at. And possibly the other way around as well. People who were not making enough, and they implemented some of your strategies, and now they are living a life that they feel contented with.
Yeah, I remember. So I was signing up for a gym. We got this kind of date night apartment, and there was a gym attached to the building. And I was like, cool, I'm going to go in there. And the guy that was the manager sat down. He had heard of Killing Sacred Cows, so he bought it after meeting with me. And then he said, hey, I normally don't train people, but I'm going to train you. So he started training me, and he was making about $3,000 a month. So I started to just work with him and say, hey, why don't you just meet with everybody that comes in here and give them one training session, and then add value in their life, and then you can start making money on everybody that sets up training for all your different trainers. So he ended up, getting to a really good six-figure income, to the point where he was bringing in the majority of the revenue for that place and not getting a piece of it. So I talked to him. I said, well, why don't you just ask for ownership? And they said, oh yeah, we'll talk to you about it later and later. And I said, hey, you got to give him a deadline on this ownership thing. And he eventually gave him a deadline. They didn't take it. So he went and created his own how to build a business on YouTube, like how to, use YouTube ads. And now he takes 3 months off a year. He makes a very good high six-figure income, has 2 young kids, got married. I actually helped him, coached him on when he was just a single guy. I got him hooked up with these authors I had been reading that are great with relationships. And so he's someone I'm still friends with, and it's pretty cool to watch him like go and golf and take his wife to all these great things. I run into him, like I went to a UFC thing, ran into him there. So he's out there just doing the things that he loves, spending plenty of time with his kids, taking 3 months of the year off while he's still making a good six-figure income. And I, as the comedian in me, used to tease him, and he always remembers this one joke. I was found not guilty, but I got sued. And he was training me on the day that I was in court. And he's like, you just seem kind of bummed out. He's like, what's it like to go through court? I'm like, don't worry, you'll never be successful enough to know. And he still talks about how that drives him to this day. So it was me just being a smart ass because we're good friends. But he actually jokes about how he was super motivated to just live this high quality of life. And he's only in his 30s. So it's really cool to watch kind of that journey with Greg, is his name, and still be his friend to this day. Smart enough to get a lot of free advice from me by being my trainer too, and just asking me questions while we trained. He eventually, paid for my programs down the road. But
thank you. Do you have any funny stories related to creating your rich life? If you don't have any, then you can tell me perhaps like a sad story.
Well, one of the funny things is, so I wrote Killing Sacred Cows, right? In the very first podcast I ever got on, the guy the whole time called it Killing Scared Crows over and over. Hey, we got the author of Killing Scared Crows. And I kept saying Killing Sacred Cows. But for 90 minutes, it was Killing Scared Crows. So I was like, oh, great, I've written this book. And now how cool is that this guy can't even get it right. And then at the end of the interview, he goes, hey, what do you think I should invest in? I'm like, literacy, glasses, a new career. So I gave him a little bit of a hard time since he couldn't say what my name of my book was. And it brought me back down to earth after hitting New York Times that I'm on this podcast that the guy can't even say the name right.
Wow, that is so amazing. Tell me, where can entrepreneurs find you?
I post 3 times a day on Instagram, just short daily doses and nuggets of like financial strategies to either make more money, keep more of the money you make, grow your money, or grow yourself. And, if they DM me, I'll send them that tax navigator for free, which is a checklist so they can figure out specifically. And, maybe put iconic brand. Then I'll know it's coming from you, right? If they just, that's what I think, right? So.
Do you have any favorite quote, like a funny favorite quote, since you're a comedian too, related to living a rich life?
A funny one. Let's see. One of my favorite quotes for a rich life is from Benjamin Franklin. It says, "Wealth is not the man that has it, but the man that lives it." Right? So that makes me think, and he also says, the best investment a man can make in himself is investing in himself. It always pays the highest interest and dividends. So I like those 2 quotes. They're not very funny though. They're just kind of good quotes.
Okay. For me, for example, I find living the rich life is actually being able to laugh every single day. And I think, having a great sense of humor really helps with that. And I think not a lot of people are blessed with a great sense of humor, at least not as much as I am. There are not as many people in the world who are as funny as I am, especially not a beautiful day like this. So anyway, stay tuned for the next episode and tell us do you have like a website where entrepreneurs can find you?
GarrettGunderson.com, and you can sign up for my newsletter on the main page. I send it out once a week with nuggets on, like every other week I'm writing a blog on different aspects of finance or big lessons that I've learned. And then there's always like good nuggets on like just, what's happening, the philosophies around it, good financial frameworks. And then you can just kind of scroll around the website. There's a money persona quiz so you can figure out like what happens when you're in scarcity and what's your money persona versus when you're in abundance, and what happens to your money persona and which one of the 4 are you and how do you operate with the others. So that's super helpful, and that's free on the website as well.
Thank you. Actually, I find that quite interesting, the money personas. Do you find that most people find a life partner that has a similar or most likely dissimilar?
Yeah, it's like the universe's sense of humor. Let's find an opposite for you, right? So like I'm a striver creator. That's striver when I'm in scarcity, creator when I'm in abundance. My wife's a conservative planner, conservative when she's in scarcity, planner. And I used to think, oh, well, I'm the gas and she's the brakes. But then I realized she's the guardrails and she's the details and I'm the accelerator. So we work really well together once we understood that. But before, it felt like contention because when I was early in my life, I was more of a miser. There's the miser and then there's the mindful manager. And the miser is all about scrimping, saving, sacrificing, budgeting, delaying. And my wife was like, you're no fun anymore when we first got married, because I was always talking about the budget and why is the heating bill so much and why is she buying stuff for her classroom and buying her stuff out of the clearance bin for Christmas. I was a cheapskate. I'm healed. I've done the work. Thank goodness. But I watch when people are getting stuck in that mindset. We don't shrink our way to wealth. Wealth is a game of expansion, of service, of solving problems, of adding value. Yet we get confused in the world when we look at most of the advice, which is to cut back and reduce expenses. Like, it's important to live within your means, but expand your means. Be more efficient and plug your financial leaks. Don't just budget.
Thank you. What's a good way to deal with a partner who seems to be your complete opposite in terms of financial persona?
I think they should read Money Unmasked. If you get them to read Money Unmasked, like that book, I really wrote to bring someone along and help couples kind of understand how to work together. So to me, that thing took me years and years and years to write. And I think that's by far the most helpful way. You could also take the money persona quiz and they could take the money persona quiz. So you can kind of understand strengths and weaknesses or differences, which are kind of helpful. And then even account structure can help out, because I know some people that they get mad at their spouse for buying things. Like, why is this Amazon box coming? Or what's that? And it's like, hey, you need to have a living wealthy account, money that's just guilt-free spending, so that you're not always pinching pennies and looking at every dollar. You could just say, we're going to take a percentage and set in this account. And that could be, we upgrade our trip, or we buy nicer clothes, or we have a nicer dinner. Because if it's always about sacrificing, waiting for 30 years, you miss out on that quality of life. And when you have a better quality of life, you have more energy. You're more of a value creator. You feel more abundant. You feel more happy. You laugh more often. I think that wealth is a byproduct of a life well lived. Our richest life is a life well lived. Our richest life is being present along the way, being excited about the future, but living for today. That's a rich life. And everybody gets to design their own. What allows you to do that? What excites you? What are you engaged in? And not just letting the world tell you what's important, but you just establishing the rules.
Thank you. I think when you don't have, for example, the plan that you just mentioned for couples, it can lead to a lot of guilt and resentment, and also almost like feeling a little bit trapped, in the sense of feeling like you can't make your own decisions anymore. Like every little thing you have to like consult with your wife or your partner. So what other tips do you have in terms of couples managing their freedom, their financial freedom?
Yeah, so my wife and I have a joint account, and that handles the like bills that are for the house and the house payment and the stuff that's just the two of us together. But she also has accounts which allow her to save for gifts or just go to spend money with her and her friends. And it doesn't bother me. It's like, great, that money went into that account, do what you want with it. I've also got an investment account. So I have a wealth capture account that I paid my money into first. I've got a Living Wealthy account that my wife and I can just spend the money that shows up in there. She's got her own separate account that money goes into as well, so that she has a lot more control over like her life, because I don't want to sit there and judge everything she's spending her money on. It's her money. And even though we're a couple and we're in this together, I like her having that autonomy and some of that ability. And I think if everything's separate, that's a problem. If everything's together, that could be a problem. So having a mixture of the two, which accounts matter, which ones are really for the two of you and which ones are really for each person individually. Like she can have access to the investment account at any time. She can look at it, but that's really something that I do most of the management, and then she gets kind of reports. Whereas her account, I never look at it. I just, she can save up, she could buy stuff. She's such a diligent saver. It doesn't, but I don't ever want her to feel like ashamed that she goes and buys something that's expensive.
Thank you. For those entrepreneurs that have, let's say, a spouse that is making a lot less than them, what would you recommend they do?
Share if you're making a lot more with your spouse in that, and there's or just say, okay, you're making less. That's just your money to enjoy life with. And we can handle everything else here. I mean, it just depends on how much less it is and what their overall expenses are. But if my wife started earning, she used to be a teacher. If she started teaching, I just get paid a lot for a teacher, right? I'm a different kind of teacher. So I'd be fine with her, just having that as her own money. Now, if we were closer in income and we didn't have a lot of extra, it might be like, hey, take a percentage of what you earn, but let's put a percentage together. And that covers our bills and our, food and our kids' education and that kind of stuff.
Thank you. Okay. So you wouldn't feel, for example, if your wife was doing, let's say, was making only like 10% of what you were making.
Yeah.
Would that impact your overall finances, for example?
No, I just let her take that 10% and spend it however she wanted.
Okay.
That's just me. Now, if we were like newlyweds or we were in a deeper financial, if we're in deep financial trouble, that might be different. But because my model is creating financial independence and recurring revenue. So I've got people that pay every single month to be in our multiplier community, or, that are paying every month to be in my inner circle, or, other ways that we're creating cash flow. That money is not required. And I just wanted to be able to enjoy that. Now, if she's like, hey, I'd like to invest that, then I would be totally cool with that too. But we've kind of got that handled with our businesses and the books and the, different things that we do.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.